Okay, so that's the Genesis chapter 29, verses 1 to 30. This is the honey trap. And as you can see, why, as we have read just now, why this would be the honey trap. But our focus is not on exegeting every line, interpreting every sentence, but we want to focus on the life of Jacob. All right, I want to focus on things from Jacob's perspective, and also what he went through in life, or rather what God has measured out to him for him to experience in his life. So we have Jacob meets the shepherds of Haran. Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. So the land of the people of the east, that would be Babylonians, because uh, that's where Abraham came from. He came from Mesopotamia. As he looked, he saw a well in the field, and behold, three flocks of sheep lying beside it. For out of that well, the flocks were watered. The stone of the well's mouth was large, uh, and when all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep and put the stone back in its place over the mouth of the well. Now, why do they do that? It is because, later they'll explain, verse 8. But they said, we cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and the stone is rolled from the mouth of the well. Then we water the sheep. So so they had an agreement, all right? They had an agreement that no one shepherd gets to water the flock first. Uh, who knows whether you so that you don't get a priority. So it's an agreement that we get to do this together every day. So that was the thing. Now Jacob said to them, "My brothers, where do you come from?" They said, "We are from Haran." He said to them, "Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor?" So basically, Abraham has two brothers. One is Haran, and the other one was Nahor. And Haran died earlier in the presence of the father. I mean, the father was that means um, Terah, right? Terah has three sons: Abraham, Haran, and Nahor. And say, "Hey, we're from Haran. Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor?" Nahor being Abraham's brother. So Laban being Jacob's uncle, right? So Laban has a sister by the name of Rebecca, who was Jacob's mother. All right. So they said, "We know him." And he said to them, "Is it well with him?" They said, "It is well. And see, Rachel, his daughter, is coming with the sheep," or uh, as Jason pronounced, Rachel, his daughter is coming with the sheep. So she's a shepherdess. He said, "Behold, it is still high day. It is not time for the livestock to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go pasture them. Leave me alone with her," basically, right? Take water your sheep and go. Water your sheep and go. All right. I want to talk to Rachel. Okay. So that's his strategy, right? You know, get some alone time with her. But they say, "We cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and the stone is rolled from the mouth of the well. Then we water the sheep." There's an arrangement beside the stone is very big. All right, the stone of the well's mouth was large, so we need a lot of guys to roll the stone from the mouth and of the well. And we are already here. Rachel is coming with Laban's sheep, and there are other shepherds and shepherdesses that they are waiting for the whole gang to group together, right? So Jacob, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Now, as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, uh, Jacob came near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Now, of course, there is some love at first sight here, but the focus here is Laban, the mother's brother, 3 times. Laban, his mother's brother, Laban, his mother's brother, Laban, his mother's brother. Okay, so this has more to do with who Laban is at this point than who Rachel is. Why? Because Laban is the person that uh, uh, Laban is the person that the mother asked to flee to flee to Laban, and if Laban don't take you in, then you are left on your own, right? You have to fend for yourselves. Esau is on your tails, and you can't turn back. And Laban is your mother's brother, is your only hope. And there's this kinship thing there. We're gonna talk a bit more about this kinship family. So this is family, your mother's brother, right? Your uncle. So it's someone that should take care of you, should protect you, and your benefactor, and you would do well if Laban is impressed by you, is impressed with you. You're hardworking, you are strong, you can single-handedly roll the stone from the well's mouth, and then you are there already watering the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Okay, so the first impressions, these things counts. This is an interview right here. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. This kiss is not yet a romantic kiss. This was like finally, it must have been a terrible journey. It must have been a very, very difficult journey for this stay-at-home mama's boy. All right, for he spent most of his times indoor in the tents, and he has been doing this journey from Beersheba, which is southern tip of Israel, up north beyond the borders of Israel, to Haran. And so it's been a long journey. He's tired, he's dirty, and then he's been, maybe he's homesick, maybe he's missing his mom, or whatever the reason, he broke down and cried. And here is Rachel, and it could be his potential future wife, because that's what his father told him to do, right? Go and marry a daughter of Laban or something, right? And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman, and that he was Rebekah's son. All right, so this Laban, his mother's brother, kind of a thing. So talking about affinity, talking about kinship, we are family. Your dad should really take care of me. I'm his nephew. I'm your cousin. Okay, so Yaakov told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rivka's son, and basically go back and tell your father, Laban. So she ran and told her father. Now, as soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. This is like world-class hospitality, all right? World-class hospitality, family. Now you feel good for Jacob. It's like he's in good hands. Laban is looking out for him. This is your mom's your mom's brother. This is your uncle, and he welcomes you. In fact, he runs to meet you. If you remember the story of the prodigal son, right? So for an older man to run, right? So like the prodigal father, right? Prodigal son's father run towards the prodigal son, and they say, "Oh, that is undignified, isn't it?" And you have to pull up your ropes running like a skirt like that. So he expose your legs or whatever. So that's for a dignified sheikh like Laban with all his possession. This is not this unbecoming. So but he shows how much he loved Jacob, isn't it? Ran to meet him, embraced him, kissed him, brought him to his house. So Jacob told Laban all these things, not too sure what kind of things. I think it's maybe a father's kinsman, Rebekah's son. I'm not too sure whether told about Esau is trying to kill him. And Laban said to him, surely you are my bone and my flesh. We are family. We are family. Remember the Adam and Eve story? You know, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Like, you know, you are my family, man. You are close. And then think, and he stayed with him a month. You get to stay there a month, and that's great. So at this point, you're the reader. You're like, you know, okay, Jacob is in good hands, and Laban loves him, and this is gonna be great for Jacob. But the next sentence says, then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be? Basically saying no freeloading. This is Middle East style, okay? Uh, Middle Eastern type negotiation, all right? Uncle Roger say, the people outside sell me 30, you sell me 80, I ask for 35, but outside people sell me 30, but because I like you, right? So that kind of a thing. So Laban said to Jacob, because you are my family, you're my kinsman, man, you're my bone of my bones, the flesh of my flesh, right? Why would you be doing all these chores for me for nothing? You know, tell me what shall your wages be? Basically, he's saying, no, you will not be a freeloader, number one. Number two, you are not going to serve me like family. All right. I remember when I was a kid, I have to work in my father's restaurant during the holidays, right? And I don't get paid nuts, right? I get to eat, and that's about it. Whereas his employees, the staff in the restaurant, they get paid wages. I don't get paid a wage, they get paid wages. So actually, because you're my kinsman, it should be everything I have is yours. Just come and enjoy, you right? You help out wherever you can, and then we're just family lah. What is this? Tell me what shall your wages be? It is that no. I want to establish a master-servant relationship. All right? Yeah. And if you're ever doing anything for me, I'm sure, right? You love my daughter. You like to spend time with my daughter, and she's a shepherdess. So you're out in the flock every day. You know, Jacob in that 1 month, he wasn't just doing nothing. He was doing something. But you will not do that as my kinsman. You will be my employee. So I don't owe you anything. Right? Laban said, I don't owe you anything. Okay? So business is business. Tell me, what shall your wages be? Now, Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Now, Leah's eyes were weak. Nobody actually knows what that means. Mother said that, I don't know. But Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. So Jacob loved Rachel. So he's a very simple man, all right? He's a very, how do I say, all right? It's not about character or anything. But if you read on, you'll notice that Rachel, okay, this is gonna come out very bad. But people told me there's such a thing as pretty girl syndrome. And you may be able to detect that in Rachel. Whereas Leah, you know, she's loyal, she's after her husband's affection. I think Leah has a better character than Rachel in my reading. What is pretty girl syndrome? Where pretty girls get away with more, something like that, I suppose, right? So, but that is not what Jacob was looking for. Jacob was looking for, right, pretty girl. That's all. He's all about the external, right? He's not about whether what's on. It's not about the character or the disposition. It is about just the physical, because one's eyes were weak. That's about it, and the other one was beautiful in form and appearance. Very shallow. Jacob was very shallow, and he said, "I will serve you 7 years." 7 years is full term, you know, full term. full term, all right, for your younger daughter Rachel. Now this is very, very unlike Jacob. If Jacob was who Jacob was back in Bathsheba, he'll be, yeah, I will serve you for Rachel 3 months. Right? Serve 3 months notice, or something, and then let's negotiate. And but then here, from the start, he gives the maximum price. There's nothing to negotiate out because you already paid the maximum. Right? Opens his mouth with the maximum. Now that is not how Jacob normally behaves. Normally, Joshua asks, am I implying Rachel will be less loyal, appreciative of her husband's love than Leah? I didn't say that. Loyal is different. Demanding is another thing, but it is not about loyalty. Back then, there's no such thing in life. Memang loyal one lah. Okay. Appreciative, yeah, actually, she does take him for granted a lot of the times. Okay. So now notice what Jacob says. Jacob says, yeah, I'm willing to be your servant. I will serve you. I'm willing to establish a master-servant relationship. I mean, for someone like Jacob, he would want to squeeze the most out of Laban, isn't it? Like, hey, I thought we are family and things like that. You know what? I'll do it for you for free. He would counter. I would expect Jacob to counter offer Laban and say, no, hey, you are my mother's brother. I mean, I do all these things out of my own willing heart. It's for free. I'm doing this for free. And Laban will be like, oh my goodness, how do I get this boy off that position, right? Off that strong position and to a servant position whereby you got a salary and then you listen to what I say and then you do what I say, that kind of thing. But Jacob doesn't do it here, right? Because he's smitten. He has this weakness, isn't it? His weakness is Rachel. So right off the bat, he said, I will serve you 7 years, maximum number of years. Don't even need to discuss. It's an offer that you cannot refuse. So Laban said, whoa, 7 years, that's worth it. It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man. 7 years, stay with me. But this stay with me is like, it's different. I mean, it's supposed to be, you're my kinsman, stay with me, all right? And just be part of the family. Now it is stay with me, it's like, yeah, we are family, but actually, no, we are master-servant relationship. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and there seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her, right? A few days to him. Love passed by. I mean, time passes by fast. When you are in love, nothing sounds like a chore, isn't it? If you are in love. All right, so that is how Jacob trapped himself, right? Laban didn't even do anything. This was all Jacob's voluntarily taking the lowest offer. So when you go for an interview, and the HR people always like to ask, what is your expected salary? Is there in the form? I've never filled that expected salary column ever, right? Because I don't feel like that column is for negotiation. But Jacob just fills it up and say, give me the lowest possible amount. So Jacob was suddenly not the kind of, he suddenly out of character because of Rachel. Yep, that happens. So then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, let me go into her, for my time is completed. So Laban gathered together all the people of the place, made a feast. Right? But in the evening, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. So it was dark, he was drunk. And then Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her servant. And the morning, behold, it was Leah. I was like, whoa! Right? I like the way that it's translated here. That's the way the Hebrew talks about it. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. Oh, what? All right, so that was Jacob's. And Jacob said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me? Why do you cheat me? Why do you scam me? Well, sometimes it's hard to sympathize with Jacob because he himself is a scammer, right? Um, uh, one of these YouTube recommendations. Nowadays, I don't know why YouTube is just recommending stuff from like from the left field, and you just keep on clicking, right? So there was this recommendation that about this guy who do YouTube videos of exposing scammers, online scammers, and he's good in technology, and he would scam back the scammer kind of a thing, scammers exposed kind of a thing. And then um, sometimes the scammer would then be really really upset because all his files got deleted by the YouTuber. And said, give me back my files, give me back my files, and without these files I'm gonna die. Like, so very pitiful. But then on the other hand, it's really hard to sympathize with these people because they are out to scam people out of thousands of dollars, isn't it? So why have you deceived me? Well, Jacob, that's what your name is about. Your name is about being a deceiver, right? So the deceiver deceive. Now, this Laban guy, he is more uh like if you think about that story about Jacob scamming his brother of the birthright. All right, that was an easy con, easiest con job in the world. Uh, Esau was a brute. Okay, his IQ is like 70, and so it's easy to scam. One bowl of soap, counting, right? But to scam the father is not easy, right? The father Isaac is very careful. He will want to make sure. But then you see, so Jacob on his own, he wouldn't be able to figure out how to scam his father. You know who figured out how to scam Isaac? Rebecca, right? Rebecca was the great scammer. She is the big scammer. Jacob is a small scammer. So Rebecca, big scammer, and this is Rebecca's brother. Okay, this was Rebecca's brother. So Laban is 10 times more cunning than Jacob. So and that is what happens to Jacob. And sometimes you meet somebody who's 10 times stronger than you, and that will be and that humiliation is good. You pride yourself of being, a great whatever, right? And then one day you meet someone who is 10 times better than you on that one. It's good for you, right? That humiliation. Why did you deceive me? Laban said, it is not so done in our country. That's not how we do things here, all right? To give the younger before the firstborn, that's not right. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years. How about that? Let's do another full term, right? So, now, is there such a custom? Maybe, maybe not. But let's just say there was such a custom. But don't you think Laban should have told Jacob 7 years earlier when he made that deal? So Laban, if this was a cultural thing, then Laban would have thought of that the moment Jacob made the offer 7 years earlier. All right. So here it's got this. This is the long con uh, that 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 uh, um, that Laban had. What is a complete week? Wedding week. Yes, wedding week is the complete week, right? Complete the week with this whole one wedding, and then we're going to hold a second wedding right after this. But you work for me for another 7 years. Jacob did so, completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his female servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her servant. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and served Laban for another 7 years. I mean, Jacob, he is part of that favoritism family, right? That is family favoritism. The father plays favoritism, the mother plays favoritism, and he plays favoritism with his two wives, Rachel more than Leah, and served Laban for another 7 years. And then the rest of the chapter is about children, Jacob's children. And God blessed Leah with children. Now, let's be logical about this. All right, 100%, Jacob had more sex with Rachel than with Leah, right? But she didn't get pregnant. It was Leah who gets pregnant all the time. It's like it gets children after children after children after children. And that is part of God's dealing with Jacob, all right? And so much so that Rachel was like crying, sobbing, begging, and said, "Give me a son or else I die," right? And it's not said once, right? Because you look at Jacob's response. Well, he was angry with Rachel. He said, "Am I in the place of God? Can I, I'm not God, right?" So the fact that Jacob got angry with Rachel after working 14 years, 7 years, 14 years for her, and all those times felt like it was just a day, right? And because and for Rachel, he would sell himself short to Laban. 7 years, another 7 years, right? So he would give a lot of leeway to Rachel, right? A lot of grace, a lot of leeway. But Rachel must have nagged him for until he's frustrated. He's frustrated, and that was basically his life. Uh, um, uh, so that was how his life was while working with Laban. And then once Joseph was born, God appeared to Jacob. Hey, it's time to go back to the promised land. And so he packed up. He did a final con on Laban. But there was this other time whereby he's trying to build his own portfolio. He's trying to build his own wealth. And he made this, if it's a white sheep, it belongs to you. If there's a spotted sheep, it belongs to me. And over time, more spotted sheep grew. And yes, this method of this superstition thing. Actually, God wants to bless him, lah. God wants to bless him. You don't have to do the superstition stuff, right? Putting in whenever the sheep comes up to eat. Huh?
In the popa, the rubbing
The popa or something like that, right? Yeah. So that is just completely unnecessary. God wants to bless him. God wants to bless him, right? That was just a bunch of nonsense that Jacob was doing. But anyway, so he left, and Rachel stole the household gods of Laban. Rachel was an idolater, right? She was an idolatress. So the household gods of Laban, so that that's her god. Those are her gods as well, right? And as they journey on, when Laban realized that they have ran away and stolen the gods, and so pursued. Now and then did a spot check, couldn't find it, couldn't find the stolen gods, and this was what Jacob replied. Then Jacob became angry and berated Laban. Jacob said to Laban, "What is my offense? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? See it, set it here before my kinsman and your kinsman, that they may decide between us two. These 20 years I have been with you." Now he is digging up all. There's an event right now, but he's digging up the past 20 years, right? Okay, and he's digging out the past 20 years. Because he said petty or whatever, but he's venting his frustration here. All right. I've been with you for 20 years. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flocks. What was torn by wild beasts, I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. If one of your animal get eaten by the wild beasts, I substituted. Right? I paid for it. All right. From my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Stolen by day is my fault. Stolen by night, hey, I'm asleep. What am I gonna do, right? But you still say that it's whether it's my shift or it's not my shift, basically. If I'm the cashier, it's on my shift, all right. And the money is lost. Okay, so I have to pay. But even when I'm not on shift, right? When I'm off duty and things get stolen, shit gets stolen, and you still want me to pay, I paid. There I was by day, the heat consumed me, and the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. I think he's speaking the truth here, all right? These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock. And here's the thing, and you have changed my wages 10 times. All right? Has your bosses ever changed your wages? Why would you complain about it? Because it wasn't an increase. Right? It wasn't an increment. If your boss is like, you start off with 2,000, and then your boss said next year we're going to give you 2,002, you say, why are you changing my wages? You don't do that. It's because, all right, your wages got reduced for 10 times in these 20 years. And so Jacob really suffered in this 20 years. What did he learn? He learned this. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. Now, this is much better than 20 years ago. Jacob has improved spiritually. 20 years ago, he would say, if God would do this for me, if God would do that for me, if God would do that other thing for me, then he will be my God. But now he comes to understand that God has kept his end of the bargain, that through all of it, all these 20 years, God was with him. God was by his side. But I would also say, although he has learned this, but overall, he did not learn much in these 20 years. He's still the same old conniving Jacob. His character didn't change much after these 20 years. All he accumulated in these 20 years was bitterness about Laban, because he couldn't outsmart Laban, he couldn't outmaneuver Laban. God has set Laban over Jacob for 20 years. If you have had a terrible boss who's just out to get you, who outmaneuvers you, who would even think about maneuvering you for 20 years, then you would know what Jacob went through. And this is part of God's training. This honey trap is part of God's transforming Jacob from a hand that grasped to a hand that blessed, transforming Jacob eventually into Israel, into that nation that is consecrated to God as a priestly nation. But he didn't start, like in the best places, and he went through hell. And that is good encouragement for us. Number one, God can use our weaknesses to conform us to Christ. Jacob's weakness was Rachel. And that's a big weakness that was exploited. First of all, he cannot himself first. Right? He spoke too soon. It's like he thinks of Rachel. Whoa, she's worth 7 years. She's worth maximum price. Um, uh, so that's all. But then God can use our weaknesses to conform us to Christ. Paul, he has his weaknesses, right? He has this thorn in his flesh that God would not remove, because God wants to transform Paul through that weakness by saying, my grace is sufficient for you. I'm not here to remove the thorn, but I'm here to give you grace, sufficient grace, to overcome the pain of that weakness. So God's strength and his glory is established in our weakness, and that is true. So even our weaknesses can be exploited by God for our good, for our conformity to Christ. God often challenges us even at our strength. So Jacob is strong in what he's supposed to be street smart. He's supposed to be conniving. His name is Jacob, right? He is a heel grasper, all right? He kabas. That is who he is, right? That is from nature by nature and by nurture by his mom. He has become this natural conman. That's his strength. But God placed his uncle, all right, Rebecca's brother. Jacob was a con man. Rebecca was the master con woman, right? And this is Rebecca's brother. So even at our strength, God challenges us so that we do not place our trust in our abilities. You see, because by our abilities, then we realize actually our abilities are filthy rags. It is not about what we can do for the Lord. We cannot do anything for the Lord. We cannot serve the Lord based on our own strengths. We cannot serve the Lord based on our IQs. We cannot serve the Lord based on our talents, because rather God challenges us that, hey, it is not about this thing. It is not about how eloquent you are, but rather it is that you will trust in the Lord instead of trusting in your own abilities. And often God uses those closest to us to be our transformers. This is Laban, my mother's brother. 3 times it's repeated. Laban, his mother's brother. Laban, his mother's brother. Laban, his mother's brother. He comes out, he runs out from the house, he hugs you, he kisses you, bring you back to his house. This is like, family and kinsman, flesh, my bones. Okay, that is the person. Those are the people that God used to transform you, to hurt you, to break you down, because you are too strong. Jacob is too strong in his character. He's so strong in his character, isn't it? He would remove that that rock that is on the mouth of the well all by himself. Okay, and then he doesn't care about what the other shepherds think. The shepherd saying that is not what we do here. Our we always meet together and make sure that we all get it at the same time. He said, I don't care. I'm here for Laban's flock. All right, I don't care about who. Oh, I'm going to do it. Get on my way. Right? We're not told what the other shepherds think, but that is not the point of this. I mean, what they think is not the point of the story, but that he would move. He would do anything to achieve his goal, his purposes. He's strong, and in order for God to get through to us, we need to be broken. And often it is those closest to you, a spouse, children, parents, siblings, co-workers, bosses, subordinates, friends. God used them. God used Laban to discipline Jacob for 20 years. And God used Leah and Rachel fighting over children as part of that whole thing to transform Jacob. And some spiritual lessons may take a long time to learn. I mean, God could always protect Jacob from Esau, right? God can always make Jacob's life easier, but there were lessons there for Jacob to learn. And in God's estimation, Jacob needed 20 years to learn those lessons. And he came out 20 years later better than he was before. Not brilliant, but better. He knows that God has been with me. And that was, think about it. What is God trying to train Jacob for throughout that 20 years? It is for Jacob to understand that God was with him. It was the God of his father Abraham and the fear of Isaac, that had it not been God, then he would have fallen victim to Laban. He would be destroyed, outplayed, and lose completely because Laban was stronger than him. So by depending on God, so he learned that he is not good enough. He needs God. And in God's estimation, 20 years, time well spent, worth it. If in that 20 years, all you could learn is you need God, and if it takes 20 years and all that torture, sleepless nights, in the field, in the sun, in the wind, in the snow, who knows what's there, with the sheep, being a shepherd, instead of being an indoor guy, now you have to be outdoors most of the time. In God's eyes, as it should be in ours as well, our spiritual growth is worth the time, the pain, and the sacrifice. We can complain to God, God, this past 20 years, why? Why is these things happening to me? The answer is God is doing that to conform you to the image of Christ. All things work together for good to those who love him, those who are called according to his purpose, so that you may be conformed to the image of Christ. And that is what it is all about. To God, it's not about how many A's you get, or the job you get, or the salary successful, or even whether whether some loved one would live or die, or that you will be in health or in sickness. Health, sickness, losing a loved one, being hurt by a loved one, being hurt in relationships, friendships, your parents, abuses. I'm not saying these things are right. What Laban did was wrong and should be confronted and dismantled. But we also have to realize that those things could also be the things that God used to draw you close to Him. Otherwise, you wouldn't come. And that is the honey trap. Next week, we're going to talk about the God restless.